This is what the very first Pokemon trading cards look like. They were released in Japan in 1996. The first set was called Expansion Pack. In the bottom right you'll see a rarity symbol, but the first round of cards to be distributed did not have rarity symbols. Collectors in the hobby call these the no rarity cards, which are among the most expensive and ironically rare cards today. The Pokemon Illustrator is famously the most expensive Pokemon card ever sold publicly. It was awarded to the winners of an illustration contest in Japan in 1997 and 1998. Only 39 were officially distributed, but 41 are known to have existed. This is the original English Pokemon card, released in 1999. The first set is called Base Set and has 4 different versions. The first version is first edition, and you can tell by the stamp outside the illustration window. The second version is Shadowless. It's identical but lacks the first edition stamp. The third version is unlimited and has many visual enhancements, most notably a shadow. The fourth version is identical but has a new copyright year of 1999 to 2000. Vintage Pokemon cards are split into 2 categories, first edition and unlimited. The only difference is the stamp, which makes the card much more valuable. However, they scrapped this idea in 2002. First edition cards are no longer printed. Japanese cards have a different first edition stamp, and this started in 2002 but ran all the way till 2016. This is a holo Pokemon card. Some people call it a foil, hologram, holographic, or holofoil. The card has a very thin layer of aluminum with beautiful patterns that capture light in a pleasurable way. This is a reverse holo. The shiny part of the card is now the inverse. They can come in many different designs and patterns, which usually change when a new series of cards is announced. Some of the older sets have reverse holos that look like this, where they have a set stamp on them. But nowadays, all reverse holos look like this one. Ancient Mew is a one-of-a-kind card. There are a few different versions of Ancient Mew, most notably the Nintendo error, where they misspelled Nintendo. But it's still unique because they never made another ancient card like this. To get one, you had to see Pokemon the Movie 2000 in theaters about 25 years ago. A trainer card's primary purpose is to assist you in battle. This can be in the form of searching your deck for a specific card, healing damaged Pokemon, and more. These would later evolve and become much more robust, splitting up into different types of trainer cards, like Supporter, Stadium, Tools, and Technical Machines, to name a few, which all have specific use cases. Most of them are fairly basic and not very collectible, but there are a few exceptions. Prize cards are what they sound like, cards that were awarded as a tournament prize. Many of these come in the form of trainer cards. They may not look like a flashy Charizard, but they're actually very sought after. For example, this second place trophy Pikachu sold for $500,000. These cards are so rare and expensive because of their scarcity. Dark Pokemon were first introduced in Team Rocket, one of the original sets from 2000. These are Pokemon that are implied to be on Team Rocket and are evil in some way. They've gone to the dark side, if you will. Their illustrations reflect that with darker colors and aggressive poses. Inversely, light Pokemon are drawn to look serene and with lighter colors. The border around the illustration window and evolution box is lighter as well, brightening up the overall aesthetic of the card. Both light and dark Pokemon are evolved, as Pokemon are presumably born innocent, and their light or dark path is determined by their trainers. Shining cards are a special type of Pokemon card that says Shining before the Pokemon's name. They're the only cards with 3 stars for a rarity symbol and are very expensive today. Gold stars have a gold star symbol after the Pokemon's name. This is the newer version of Shining Pokemon. Again, they are very rare. There is a total of 28, with one being a modern throwback released in 2021. Back to 2002. We saw the release of the E series. These cards were redesigned and have a thick yellow border with a type of barcode. These actually held data that could be scanned into your Pokemon game using a Game Boy Advanced e-reader attachment. These e-reader strips were carried on past the E-series, so you can sometimes find a sleeker and streamlined version of it on slightly newer cards, but they were mostly phased out by 2004. Beginning in 2004, the winners of the annual Pokemon World Championship get their decks turned into an official product, and this includes cards with a special back and the champion's signature on each card. They also have gray borders and are non-holo. There are 9 special e-reader cards called Crystal Pokemon. These bad boys are all normal type Pokemon upon first appearance, but they have a special crystal type ability that shifts their type to whatever energy you attached for that turn. These are all extremely rare and expensive and cool. EX cards were the first big game mechanic to shape up the official trading card game. Each new series updates its core mechanic in the form of some powerful cards. In this case, EX cards were the new thing. Usually, the new game mechanic card will have a rule box stating that they are worth more points to your opponent if they can knock them out. Owner's Pokemon, sometimes called Trainer's Pokemon, are cards that represent a human-Pokemon relationship. Sometimes this is a gym leader's Pokemon, other times it's a team's Pokemon, like Team Rocket. This pops up every few years in some way, shape, or form. It started back with Gym Heroes and Gym Challenge. We see it in some mid-era sets like Platinum, and even modern sets like Journey Together. There's one exception where a Pokemon is not owned by a human, but rather a region. These are Holon's Pokemon. Delta Species cards are a fan favorite. They'll actually say Delta Species at the top and have a Delta symbol. The gimmick here is that the Pokemon's usual type is switched to something else. We see a Dark type Charizard, an Electric Gyarados, a Psychic Ninetales, and more. Some even have 2 types, like this Metal and Fighting Blastoise. They also have unique holo designs with gold holo borders and holo showing on the Pokemon itself. Alright, it's time to talk about promotional cards. So a promo card is pretty much any card that you get outside of a booster pack or pre-built deck. Some will actually say promo on them with a black star, and these belong to their own black star promo set. Other promo cards will look almost identical to a regular card though. For example, some of the promos have a different holo pattern, and that's the only difference. Or sometimes the only difference will be a stamp. However, there are lots of promo cards that only exist as a promo, like the gray felt hat Pikachu. That's right, promos can be expensive, or they can be dirt cheap. It all depends on where and when and how many were made. Sometimes entire sets are released as promos. For example, the Southern Island set from 2001 or the McDonald's sets, which come around every year. Some pre-built decks or deck kits come with exclusive cards. These are kind of a gray area when it comes to labels. You could call these promos. They are effectively the same thing, but really they're just cards that can only be found in one specific product. Sometimes it's the whole card that's exclusive, like Ash's Pikachu and Team Rocket's Mimikyu. But other times it's as simple as an exclusive cracked ice holo pattern. And it's not uncommon to find non-holo cards in a deck that should be otherwise holo. This is a Lenticular card. As you move it, 3 different forms of the Pokemon Deoxys become visible. This is kind of like having 3 cards in one. Since it has a layer of plastic, it's extra thick. Now this is the only Lenticular card that exists today, and it's exclusive to Japan. However, there are a few Lenticular Jumbo cards available. All Jumbo cards are promos, by the way. So a Jumbo card, also called Oversized, is a giant version of a Pokemon card. The most common place to find them is in collection boxes, but some can only be obtained through promotions like special events or through limited offers at retail stores like GameStop. A smaller oversized card was added as a box topper in some early sets in 2002. They only made a handful of these, then stopped, so there are no new cards that retain this odd size. Lv.X cards are the new EX cards. They're the mechanic change-up for the Diamond and Pearl series. These evolve from a Stage 2 Pokemon, so they act as a kind of Super Saiyan evolution, further powering up a Pokemon like Charizard, for example. The bright pink cards are called Ace Spec. These are kind of like trainer cards, but on steroids. You're limited to 1 per deck, and they allow players to build some pretty strong strategies. They were recently introduced back into the TCG, but were originally brought in during the Black and White series. Alright, it's time to talk about energy cards. So in the game, Pokemon need a specific amount of energy to perform an attack, and that energy needs to match the type of Pokemon, in most cases. Most energy cards are worthless to collectors and worth just pennies to the average player. But there are hundreds of collectible energy cards that have exclusive holo patterns, stamps, designs, and more. There's a lot to collect. Even the regular non-holo energy cards get a refresh every few months now. And there are special energies that vary, like Rainbow, Mist, Boomerang, Spiky, and Legacy, just to name a few. This is a Pokémon Prime. Oddly enough, the card doesn't say Prime on it, and it's missing some details, like a Pokédex entry. These are the main game mechanic for the Heart Gold and Soul Silver series. They feature close-up illustrations of the Pokémon. Legend cards were introduced the same time as Prime cards, but are pretty much different in every way possible. These cards have two pieces, and most of them feature two legendary Pokémon. They have to both be played in order to use them in the game. One more strange card that was featured during this time is the unknown Lithograph cards. Now these are actually trainer cards, so I won't get too detailed, just fun fact for you. Okay, a full art card is a card that features artwork across the entire card, like this. First introduced in black and white and reserved for secret rares, is now extremely common in modern sets. In fact, it's so common that it's no longer referred to as a full art and has multiple subcategories. Trainer cards can be full arts, which is a whole sub-niche within the hobby. Today, it's easiest to define a full art by its rarity. For example, this is an illustration rare, and this is a special illustration rare. It's worth noting that the special illustration rare has texture on the card. An alternate art is what it sounds like, an alternate artwork, but the card's details are the same. Either can be used in the game and have the same attacks and HP. When alt arts were first introduced, they actually had their own little alt art symbol, but this went away, and alt art became a term that people used even though it wasn't official. In modern sets, we often get multiple variations of a single card, and the term alt art is being used less. EX cards were reintroduced in black and white, but they used an uppercase EX this time. They're essentially the same thing, but have some nuanced differences. Now, I did make a whole video on these game mechanics switch-ups, if you want to go more in depth on all the different types of EXs. The Radiant Collection is a subset of cards featured in the Black and White series and have unique holo patterns and designs. Since it's a subset, they feature their own numbering system. A subset is pretty much a set within a set. The Radiant Collection could be found within Legendary Treasures booster packs. Gold cards came at the same time and are quite similar in a lot of ways. These are now specified as hyper rares and are exceedingly rare and difficult to find. That being said, they're kind of ugly and tend to sell for cheap prices on the secondary market. Only one silver card exists, and that's Dialga EX. It was released in Phantom Forces back in 2014, and it's turned out to become a pretty expensive card today. MEX cards stand for Mega EX, and this is the TCG version of Mega Evolutions, which are a core part of the games. This is an upgrade past the Pokemon's final evolution, so for example, Gengar can evolve into Mega Gengar. This is a half art, but I've heard some people call it a full art, or even a 3/4 art. It's just a different style of full art card. At the top, you'll notice a box of text. This is officially known as an ancient trait, and it's kind of like an additional ability or a special power for the Pokemon. These extend beyond this awkward 3/4 art style, and some EX like Primal Groudon and Kyogre EX have this too. We got some dual type Pokemon cards during the XY series. These are kind of similar to some of the Delta species that have two types, but they're a little more advanced, and the card itself has a unique design where the types are split diagonally. Team Plasma cards featured a blue border and a blue insignia on the lower half of the card. The gimmick here as it relates to the TCG is that Team Plasma cards interact with each other, and this extends to Team Plasma trainer cards. Unfortunately, Team Flare didn't get the same treatment, but there are two Flare-themed trainer cards that look kind of cool. I guess you could call a Bright card a full art, but it's really a beast of its own. These are commonly cited as the ugliest Pokemon cards, although some of us have a soft spot for them. They're horizontally oriented, like the Legend cards, but act similar to the Lv.X cards we covered earlier. I felt like we had to include this amazingly interesting card. This is Sachiko EX, a promotional card from the XY series that was gifted to attendees at a special event held for Pokemon's 20th anniversary. Sachiko is a Japanese singer who has performed many original songs for the Pokemon franchise. An Ultra Beast is a subcategory of Pokemon that come from Ultra Space, as opposed to regular Pokemon who call a local region home. Oh, and Ishihara. In the TCG, this doesn't mean much, but an Ultra Beast card is going to have some sort of effect on your opponent's prize cards. GX cards are the main game mechanic for the Sun and Moon series. They're similar to EX and Lv.X and feature some pretty neat full art designs. Rainbow cards were introduced in Sun and Moon, included in the following series, Sword and Shield, but did not make the cut for the modern sets we see today. They're fully textured and are a rainbow colored version of another card in the set or series. They're secret rares and hard to pull from a booster pack. Now they don't look great on screen, but they look and feel pretty nice when you actually have one in person. They brought back shining Pokemon once more in Sun and Moon. Although they are visually appealing and have added texture, they didn't reach the legendary status of the other shiny cards. These are much easier to collect and a lot easier to find too. In the Sun and Moon series, you'll also find Prism cards. These aren't flashy full arts, but rather simple cards with a small prism after the Pokemon's name and a large prism on the bottom half. You're limited to one per deck and they're pretty powerful. A tag team card features multiple Pokemon on one card. As you can imagine, these make for some pretty spectacular illustrations and are all sought after today. Some tag team cards even have alternate arts or rainbow versions. These were only available in the Sun and Moon series, but we all kind of are hoping for them to come back today. Shiny Pokemon have a special background and feature Pokemon with an alternative color palette. They are full art cards and secret rares. Baby Shinies are something different. It's a nickname given by collectors and describes the shiny Pokemon that retain the original card design. These Pokemon aren't actually babies. V-cards are the series game mechanic for Sword and Shield. They're full art glossy cards with a black border. 3 personalized V-cards were created for Katy Perry, J Balvin, and Post Malone, featuring each pop star on the card with select Pokemon. Only 1 of each were made and were gifted directly to the singers. VMAX cards are powered up versions of V-cards. These are the TCG versions of Gigantamax or Dynamax Pokemon from the video games. They feature a slightly darker art style unless they are an alternate art version. VSTAR cards are a branch off of the V, not VMAX, which is kind of confusing, but most Pokemon will have either a VMAX or VSTAR card, with only a few exceptions like Charizard having both. And of course, VUNION was a new gimmick where 4 cards could be combined to form one large card. Think of Exodia from the Yu-Gi-Oh! However, Exodia was powerful and VUNION cards stunk pretty bad. In fact, they only made a few and then they disappeared. In 2021, a special half deck was created specifically for employees of creatures to receive as an anniversary gift. Each card represents a year since Pokemon's creation, with a card chosen from that year. Each of these are extremely unique, but some notable ones are Chansey and Charizard. Recently, we've gotten a handful of these gold cards that use a mix of black and negative space to create a very visually appealing design. However, they suffer from the same undervalued fate as regular gold cards. We've even seen some alternate colors being thrown in, but the truth is, people just don't like gold cards. Amazing Rares are a handful of cards spread out among a few other sets. At first they don't seem to be that special, but they have a unique design and are quite beautiful, with a special holo pattern and background illustration that extends beyond the illustration window. Radiant Rares come in with a similar vibe, but actually have quite a few differences. These are shiny Pokemon, which means they have an alternative color palette again, and each feature a reverse holo pattern that many consider to be the best to date. They're pretty strong too, with a limit of 1 per deck. This is an official Pokemon TCG metal card. Nope, just kidding. This is a bootleg that you'll find on eBay or Etsy or Amazon. There are only a few official metal cards and they look a lot nicer. The first 2 to be released were Pikachu and Charizard, then after that Arceus, then Mew, then Greninja. So far, they have only been available in Ultra Premium Collection products. The Pokemon Go set in Sword and Shield had a Ditto card, but it was disguised as a Spinarak, Numel, or Bidoof that you had to actually peel off to reveal the Ditto. This is the only time they'd ever done something like this. This is a Pokemon My First Battle card. You can see they've been simplified, and this comes from a product designed to teach the Pokemon TCG to youngsters. As the game has evolved, it's gotten more complicated, so this is a return to the good old days when it was easier to understand. These cards also have a unique back on them. The Trainer Gallery and Gallarian Gallery are subsets in the Sword and Shield series that feature a full range of beautiful full art cards. The Trainer Gallery features Pokemon bonded with their trainer, while the Gallarian Gallery features Pokemon or trainers from the Gallarian region with phenomenal artwork. Sword and Shield gave us different fighting styles, so this was denoted with a small label under the HP of a Pokemon, and this was an added layer to strategizing in the TCG. The idea was to choose a fighting style, like Single Strike, and use cards in your deck that also have the Single Strike label. The cards synergize and benefit with each other. This was also carried into the Scarlet and Violet series with Ancient and Future, and functions the same. It fits with the overall theme of Ancient and Future Pokemon from the video games. Scarlet and Violet also brought back EX, which look like this. Again, they function similarly to other EX Pokemon. We also got Terastalized Pokemon, which give the Pokemon funny little crystal hats and also sometimes changes their type, not unlike the old Delta species cards. Terra Pokemon can't receive damage when they're on the bench during a match. We also saw the introduction of Pokéball Reverse Holos. These are fully textured reverse holo cards with a Pokéball on them. There is a rare variation though, where the Pokéball is replaced with a Master Ball. These tend to demand higher prices on the secondary market.